What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Spark to Fire. I'm your host, Landon Rhodes, and today we've got Tim Clare in the studio.
Good to be here.
How you doing today, man?
Oh, never better.
Good. Tim has got some incredible experience and is a well-known member of the Lincoln community. Right now you're a partner at Rembolt Ludtke. You've served on various boards, and we'll get into all of that. But before we get into that stuff, what I really want to know is, I want you to give you a quick introduction about yourself, and then we'll go back to what it was like when you were a kid.
Okay, cool. Went to high school here, went to college here, graduated in '85, went to work at a bank up in Omaha. Did that for about 5 years, went to graduate school at night while I was at the bank, got my MBA, and then decided to quit and go to law school. And went to law school at Creighton as well, where I got my MBA, and then took a job back in Lincoln at Rembolt Ludtke, which is where I'm at today. And the thing, if you would have told me that I was going to be a lawyer when I graduated from college, I would have said you're crazy. And I wanted to work in finance somewhere, and so I ended up working at a bank, and that's where I got the idea of going to law school. So I think a lot of kids today think, gosh, I don't know what I want to do. I got to search, and they delay making a decision. I think it's really important to make a decision, and you can always pivot, you can always adjust, you can always change, but make a pivot, get some experiences doing something. So anyway, that was kind of my background. I've been at the firm for 28 years full time, a little over 28 years, and my wife and I have got 5 kids. All those kids have graduated from the university and are doing great. I serve on the Board of Regents for the university. I've been on in 12 years. I'll serve 6 more because I'm running for re-election this year, and I don't have an opponent, which I recommend to all my friends that want to run for public office. Try to run and not have an opponent. It makes it a lot easier. Makes Mama a lot happier at night too. Mama doesn't have to stress about it.
Right.
Also am involved with the Joint Public Agency, which oversees the arena. So that was kind of a fun project. It is a fun project, and serve on some community boards. The Community Foundation being one, and the Malone Center being the other. And then I'm on the board of Union Bank and Trust Company.
Awesome. A lot of service.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Very honored that people feel like I can have positive impact on their different organizations, and so they give me that opportunity, and I'm very appreciative of that.
And I think what I want to do is I want to understand why. I want our listeners to understand, what you've done to kind of get to that point. And so I think a good place to start off is, what were you like as a kid, real young?
Well, my mom's not here, so she can't verify what I was like as a kid.
Right.
And she can't confirm or deny anything. There was no cell phone pictures, so there's nothing there.
Nothing happened.
We
then.
didn't have cell phones.
Right.
So it's all good. But I was a typical kid, involved with sports, and odd jobs. Every young kid has a mowing job, and every young kid does some different things. I worked. My dad actually got me working road construction, which I swore I never wanted to do. That's why I did better in school after those fall semesters, after working the summer for road construction. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that was hard work. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure I didn't want to do that all my life.
You knew what you didn't want to do.
Yeah. But and when I was younger, I worked out hard, and because I was not the biggest guy, I was not the strongest guy, and I had to, through hard work and repetition, that enabled me to have some success athletically. Also probably shaped me for the underdog and the guy that hard work and perseverance and stick-to-itiveness and so on, I think is a real tribute to success, and can parlay into other success and other aspects of your life. So that's been good. I do, as I was preparing for this, I look back and didn't really pay attention to it, but I was elected captain of every team that I was on. And I thought that was kind of interesting. I never really thought about that growing up as a kid, why that was the case, or it just happened, and I just expected it, kind of type of thing.
You expected it of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be in leadership positions.
Yeah, and I was, and so that was kind of interesting. Played a little football in college, but I ended up having a pretty bad knee injury that still impacts me today. But so that ended. But I still love sports, and I think sports is a great learning tool for life, because you get punched in the nose in life. You got two choices. You can quit and go home, or in the sports vernacular, you can take your ball and go home, or you can get back up and figure out, that wasn't very much fun to get run over by a 300-pound pulling guard. Right. I got to figure out a way to take on this guard a little bit better next time. And in life, how are you going to react? Are you going to quit? Or are you going to get back into the fray? And so I love sports. I coached a little bit in high school. When I was in college, I went back and coached at my alma mater, the Lincoln East High School.
The Lincoln East.
And had a great time, great experience. Loved it. Maybe someday I'll go back and coach full time. Who knows? But I just had a great opportunity to do that, and I love John Wooden, who says and why I like coaching, I think, and why I really respect good coaches like a John Wooden. A good coach can change a game, but a great coach can change a life, and I think that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah,
absolutely. And this show is called Spark to Fire. For the audience, it's just kind of getting here for the first time. And what would you consider a spark to fire moment in your career, to where things really took off to the direction you knew you wanted to go with your life?
Well, and again, as I was thinking about this, the first spark to fire that I had was probably when I was in high school. And I talked to a guy that I considered a friend back then, and is still a friend today. His name's Jim Pillen. And Jim told me, I asked him for advice as to where to go to college, because I had some small college offers and so on to play, and I had a walk-on offer at the university. And he said, I never wanted to go through life wondering what would have happened if. So I could have gone to a small college, and I always went in the back of my head would have said, what would have happened if I would have gone to the university?
Yeah.
And so that's, quite frankly, that is the primary reason why I went to the University of Nebraska. It's because I didn't want to, I respected that. So that was my first spark to fire. The second one then was probably when I was working at the bank up in Omaha. And I think it's the idea, and again, this is me. This isn't, I'm not saying this is right or wrong. This is me. It's that I wanted to probably have a little bit more control of my own destiny,
right?
And working for myself, in effect, and having a little bit more control prompted me to go to law school.
Yeah.
And prompted me to think, I'm going to practice. I turned down a great job and great opportunities at the bank, and in fact, they offered to pay for my law school if I would come back.
Oh, sure.
And
yeah.
I said, I may end up doing that, but I don't want to be endowed, because I don't want to owe anybody any money.
Right. Yeah.
So I said, okay, I'm going to try it on my own and see, and maybe I'll come back, and maybe I won't. And I ended up not getting and I got a job here at in Lincoln. Probably the third spark to fire moment was when I made the decision to run for the Board of Regents. And that decision was after talking with my neighbor. My next door neighbor is a guy named Mark Shore. Mark and I were visiting about the university and how the state is in need of keeping and retaining its younger talent,
right? And
not letting the talent leave the state, because if it leaves the state, it's really hard to get it back. So as a university, we need to be really aggressive in trying to keep those kids here, and partnering with the business communities to get internships started and jobs and so on. And Mark convinced me that I should do that. And so I really contemplated it hard, thought about it, talked to my wife. My wife said, it's not the right time. Kids are too young. And I said, yeah, you're right. And then she came back to me the next day and said, I think it is the right time. And I said, no, I don't. I think you're right. I think it wasn't the right time. We went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Finally, I got tired of this, and I was driving to one of my kids' events out at Lux Middle School, and I was passing Lincoln High at the time, and I said a prayer when I was in the car. And I said, God, show me a sign, show me something in the next 2 weeks, because I can't keep going back and forth. Am I supposed to do this or not?
Yeah.
And so I walked into Lux Middle School, and this is a true story. Walked into Lux Middle School, turned down the hallway to go down the hall to see where my daughter was, and I ran right into Tom Osborne.
There is no better reminder.
I said, that's a pretty good story, pretty good sign, God. And
Yep.
so that's, I mean, that's a true story. And then I think and the university had always been important to me.
Right.
So it wasn't just wasn't a position that I was going to use as a stepping stone. You know, with my family and the culture of my family and the involvement that my family's had in the university. And I was an adjunct professor down there for a few years. Mm-hmm. The university's been extremely important to us, and we felt it was imperative to stay involved and give back. And this was the way to do it. And I think that it was just part of our DNA. You know.
Yeah.
And then the fourth and probably the one that you're referring to when you say spark to fire is the in trying to make me a better man, and a better man, and that translates to a better husband, better father, better son, better brother, better uncle, type of thing, and it's a relationship that I had with Coach Cook, and that our kids were the same age, and we would go and watch basketball practice together, and we'd sit and chat. And then where our relationship really took off is we were at a bowl game, and he and I got together and had breakfast, and we ended up sitting at that breakfast table in, I think it was in Florida, and I think it was the Gator Bowl. I'm not 100% sure, but we sat in that cafe for 4+ hours. And talking about what ignites you, what gets you going, how do you make yourself better, all these things that I think that had been really, I think I'd taken it for granted over the years, but I really hadn't pushed it or really hadn't thought about applying it. I'd heard about people getting coaches, and I thought, oh, that's crazy. You're not playing sports. What do you need a coach for?
Right. You just have to survive.
Yeah. But that led to I guess asking more questions. I talked with a guy named Larry Woodman. I talked with a guy named Jack Riggins, who have a Performance Mountain company, along with Danny Woodhead.
Jack is he a former Navy SEAL?
Yeah, Jack's a Navy SEAL, and he's got some experiences, and that led to asking. I've got 6 people that I've put on a personal board of directors for me.
Love that.
And then I've got I pay a guy to also coach me. Yeah. So I've got a coach, and then I've got my own personal board of directors. And I meet with my board quarterly at a minimum.
And do you guys meet together?
No.
Okay.
No, we meet individually.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do some homework assignments, and then report back to them, and it's all designed to make me a better man.
Okay, so that's a huge moment of reflection, because I don't even know if we talked about that before this, but so for everyone listening, you literally assemble a team of people to hold you accountable to your goals, people that are going to challenge you, make you think in different ways, your own personal board of directors.
Yes.
And when did that become up, and when did that become an idea for you?
I don't know. I mean, it wasn't something that I did overnight. It's something that over about a 2-year process I thought about and put together, and kept asking questions of people. I talked with, Hank Bounds, the former president here. I talked to him about it. I talked to other leaders about what they're doing.
And did they do this same thing?
Yeah.
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 Interesting.
So the choosing the board members, it's people that I feel are people that have what's a priority to me. And my priority is the 3-legged stool,
right?
Where you got to be emotionally fit, spiritually fit, and physically fit. And so my 6 directors all know what my priorities are, and they're people that I think live this priority life.
Yeah.
And so they hold me accountable, and we talk about
And
lots of things to try to progress and make yourself better.
And for the listeners, if they're looking to assemble their own personal board of directors, what's a piece of advice you would give them about going to assemble those people? How would how do you pick a mentor? And then if they want to get mentorship, what's a good way of making that happen?
Well, I think first off, it involves the step of, why do you want to do this?
Right.
If your goal is, for example, to say, I'm going to get a board of directors so that I can increase my income 300%.
Right.
I think I'd want to dig deeper with you if you'd ask me to be your mentor to you. I'd want to say, well, what does that have to do with anything?
Right. Why?
Because I know a lot of people that make a lot less money than that are happy, who I admire. They got a great life. They're successful beyond their wildest dreams. And there's different measures of success out there, and they happen to define success as I've got a great marriage, I got a great spouse, I got great kids, I've got da 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 da. I am so rich.
Yeah.
And it may not be economics, it may be in life, it may be in health, it may be in other things. So I'd want to dig down and find out, what are you drastically trying to change? What are you drastically trying to impact? What's your why? Like you were saying, I mean, that's key. And once you figure out what your why is, then you go out and you interview and talk with people who you think could be good advisors for you.
Yeah, that's brilliant, and advice that I am actively taking right now. I've subconsciously put together kind of a board of people around me, but I never considered it like that. I don't know. I've never made that unlock. So You've had plenty of mentors that you just talked about, with your personal board of directors. Who are some of those people, and what are the things that they've, give me like a little piece of information that they taught you collectively as a group?
Well, I was really fortunate early on to have great parents.
Yeah.
They taught me the work ethic and again, I grew up in a family that we were very lucky. We could afford to have a car, for example, and do some different things. But I remember a story about a guy, a sportscaster back here in town that was a sportcaster when I played and when my little brother played. And he stopped me one day on the street and he goes, I have the utmost respect for your family because your dad could have afforded to buy you a car. And instead, he got you a car that I saw you pushing at one time downtown. And I said, that was either me or my brother. And he goes, well, that's true, because I couldn't tell you two apart. So One of you was in the driver's seat and one of you was behind the car pushing. And it's because it didn't have a starter on it. We had to park it on a hill and kind of push it and pop the clutch. And then that's how it started. Because Dad was, he had that ability, but he also wanted to teach us work ethic and taking care of things and those types of things. And that's what that sportscaster observed. And I didn't even know it. I didn't know where he was even talking about, but that's what he said. Jim Miller was the guy's name.
That's the thing though. When you're in it as a young kid, like you're not going to know any different.
No.
You'd be like, well, just got to push this thing down the hill and get it started. Not a big deal.
Yeah, well, fortunately, we lived on a hill, too.
Well, look at that.
It wasn't a bad deal, man.
We just got to make sure it makes it up the hill to park it, right?
Yeah, so I had my parents. I had some coaches in school. One of my coaches taught me, and I still remember exactly. I kept it on my bulletin board for a couple of years. Aim for the universe, because if you fall short, you'll fall among the stars. And I thought that was a cool. That's a way to set the bar high.
Right.
And if you don't make it, strive to make it, but if you don't make it, you can fall amongst the stars, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think guys like I mentioned Jim Pillen earlier, and his advice of not wanting to go through life wondering what would have happened if. So those are some ones that were mentors to me. Now I would say today my mentors are probably, again, my parents, and you strive to make them proud and that type of thing. My wife and kids are also mentors, and my wife keeps me really grounded, and she says, pick up your underwear off the bathroom floor. You're not that cool, and that's kind of that's the way she is.
Humbling moment.
Morning. It really truly is. I think Jim Rembolt and Dave Ludke, two guys that started our firm, were mentors. Ludke was the guy that really went to bat for me, and because I wasn't number one in my class,
right.
But he knew that nobody would ever outwork me,
Yeah.
And so he knew the value of hard work and integrity and ethics and character and all those things. And in fact, I was in thinking about this. There was, when I started at the firm, there was 5 jobs available in Lincoln, and I fortunately had 3 job offers from 3 of the 5 firms.
Oh, wow.
And then so Ludke, I was out to dinner. This is pre-cell phone. Ludke called. He found out where I was having dinner, and he called me. And I got paged over the loudspeaker at Laszlo's downtown.
No.
And I went up to had to answer the phone, and it's Dave Ludke, and he says, we want you here. And he says, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to be the best in terms of not only a practitioner, but also in terms of committing back to the community and being the best parent and spouse I can be. And he said, that's our firm. And I said, all right, I'll sign. And that's what I did.
That's our firm.
And so those are some mentors. I certainly, my personal board, again, these are guys that I admire, men that I admire because of their work ethic and their integrity and their faith. Mm-hmm. I go to a couple of Bible studies, and those guys are role models and mentors to me.
I think that's really important to have a faith mentor as well, because even if you go to church, you can go to church, have the sermon and everything, and sing the songs, but having somebody outside of that has been really helpful as well, to just have somebody that consistently talks about it a lot, more so than your other group of friends.
You're going to go through trials and tribulations in your life, or at least I did, and I will continue. And I don't know how I could survive those without a faith. Mm-hmm. It's really important. Yeah. And I think there's some community leaders, the Mike Dunlops and the Ton Ostergaards and the Jim Abels. They're tremendous leaders. And role models and mentors, and then also some of my clients that exemplify ethics and integrity and doing the right thing. The Roland Temmies of the world from TMCO, and the Randall Rileys and Mark Youngs from some independent telephone companies that I work with, and Doug Barnes from here in town. These are guys that take care of their employees, doing the right thing, and that's taught me how to try to conduct my business at my law firm, which I think has helped me be a better, employer to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. So you're getting, just by having to work with these clients or getting to work with these clients, you're learning a lot from them or you're looking for ways you can learn from them too.
Yeah.
And that is a really probably under talked about thing in terms of entrepreneurship, is the fact that you get direct access to business owners, and you're also directly responsible for creating results for business owners, just like you are. And that feeling, A, makes you work harder, but then B, there's a lot of mutual respect there, I think, between business owners that way. And that's cool. So what would be your advice, to anyone looking to drastically improve their life? I love your piece of advice around assembling a personal board. I think that's brilliant. What else would you say if somebody wants to take their career to the next level, or they're not sure about starting a business or going into business for themselves? What would you give them for advice?
Well, again, what's your why?
Right.
What's the reason that you want to do this? And a lot of people will naturally go back to wanting to make more money. But again, if that's to make more money so I can drive a cool car, that's one thing. If it's to make more money so that maybe my spouse doesn't have to work, or maybe I can help pay for my kids' education, or maybe it's so I can help a parent out, or maybe it's for some of those reasons, and then you drill down on that why, and you figure it out. But for me, I wanted to be spiritually, physically, and emotionally fit. And so that was something that I thought was really important. And so some of the advice would be surround yourself with people that are going to help hold you accountable to that, but also set examples of spiritual soundness, physical soundness, and emotional soundness. And I think those are important. I think you want to surround yourself with people who are good teammates. Not everybody's going to get their name in the paper. Not everybody's going to be on the headline. Not everybody's going to make all the money. But if you can be a good teammate and watch helping the success of the organization. That's the type of person that you want to surround yourself with. Do you have a purpose? What's, again, going back to the why? What's your purpose in wanting to do this? Is it so that you can do these things, or is it because you want to help out somebody else? For me, I wanted to be able to help out my family and my kids and make me a better man. And if I made myself a better man, would money come? Probably.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, I'm a better parent. I'm a better husband. I'm a better son, brother to my brothers. So those are some things that I would think about. And again, I think I would stress on the relationship piece of all that. You form good relationships. Are they meaningful? Are they with those people that you're surrounding yourself with, or are they just are they superficial or just on the layer, or are they deep?
Right.
And I've got a lot of friends, but I've got a few deep friends that again hold me accountable, check in, and that type of thing.
Yeah. That's a really important piece of it, is having those people, confidants. You can take anything to, and it's not leaving the room.
Yeah, exactly.
I would 100% agree with that. That's been, man, if I didn't have people to process issues with that way, as a young business owner just getting started, I don't know what I would do.
And so for example, if you're talking with somebody that is ego driven,
mm-hmm.
a lot of times that ego is gonna take control of that relationship, and that ego is gonna say, I want to be better than Landon. I want to be better than him. So I'm gonna talk myself up to make him look less. Whereas in a person that maybe isn't ego driven, that is instead interested, being interested rather than interesting.
Right. Yeah.
There's a distinction there. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah.
But somebody who's interested in your success and wanting to see you succeed is going to try to be, objective in their views of you, and objective in their advice, and objective in their counsel, but they're not going to do it for self-serving purposes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting twist on it, because if you're subjective, it's just your opinion of who they are as a person, your opinion of the action that they took.
Right.
Rather than just saying, here's the thing, this thing happened, whether, let's assign blame later, but this is the thing that happened, and you're responsible for that. And here's what you need to not do again. Here's how you got to improve.
Yeah.
That's leadership 101 though, is showing people and setting that expectation.
Be surprised how many people don't understand leadership 101.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's important when you're looking to some advice that we talked about just a second ago. The advice there is in who are you going to surround yourself by? You want people that have taken 101 and aced it.
And now they're teaching the class. Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah. And I feel like I've really actively looked for that. And it's wild. I was just out at lunch with my grandma the other day, and I had given up, this is just a good example, but I had given up drinking for a personal challenge I was doing with a friend of mine. And she asked, she's like, do you catch a hard time from your friends about not drinking? And I'm like, not the friends I want to be around.
Exactly.
And that's immediately the answer, because the right people are going to want the best for you. And yeah, it might not match their social circumstance at the time or whatever they want to do, but the right people around you are going to want what's best for you. And if they think that you believe that's best, they're going to be like, oh, well,
they're going to support you 100%.
We're not drinking. No, neither are we, and like and I actually found that in my recent group of friends that I've surrounded myself with. And that's been really, really cool to have, but you got to have those people around when you have failures as well. What's one of the biggest failures that you're willing to talk about that you've had in your personal and professional career?
Well, I've had thousands of what you call failures.
Right.
But I've got a different twist on failing.
Got it.
I think, and I'll quote Thomas Edison, who said he never failed at anything. He just learned that there was 10,000 ways that didn't work. And he's got to find the way that makes it work, mm-hmm. right? When he invented the light bulb, and I think modern day, one of life's failures is when a person quits right when they're on the brink of success.
Yeah,
those are issues. But I think I don't know really what failure is. I think failure, you think about it from a sports vernacular. Look at baseball players get paid or if they get 3 out of 10, they make the Hall of Fame.
Right.
That means that 30% of the time that they're up to swing the bat, they make the Hall of Fame. Does that mean that 7 out of 10 they fail?
No.
No, they just got to figure out that guy's throwing a splitter, so I've got to wait on it, or it's he's going to come with the heat on the second pitch. Mm-hmm. So I got to know where to. I guess I got to learn from that, and so I don't look at failure in that regard. I think of them as more opportunities to figure out the way to make it work. Mm-hmm. And I think failures are basically speed bumps in my book.
Right.
And
just a reminder.
A speed bump is like, oh, dang, I didn't see that coming.
Right.
So I got to figure out another way to make it happen.
On that one.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's it's back there behind me.
It's back there. Yeah, but that's the thing is not I love the idea of having a really short-term memory in terms of like your failure, your losses, that sort of stuff, learn from it, but move on. Yeah. That dwelling in the first few years of business is so easy to do. Dwelling on this, and it causes pain, and that pain usually is directed right to your bank account.
Sure.
It's you missed this contract opportunity. You're going to make way less money this year. You are not going to be able to pay yourself nearly anything because you got to pay your employees. Like those sort of tiny mistakes, like it's easy to dwell on those. But if you would just stop dwelling on those and go sell and go get back to work, you could have solved those problems way faster. And I think if I was looking back, that's one thing I would tell myself is stop dwelling.
I like the quote. It's why the windshield's bigger than the rearview mirror.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Got a lot to look at. So what's one of the hardest lessons you've learned in life and why?
I think the hardest lesson is everything you do, regardless of whether it's in professional, in your personal, in your family, in your faith, in your physical fitness, it takes work. Mm-hmm. We're going through this right now. We got a new puppy, and he's a 5-month-old golden retriever. Yeah. And there are days that he's awesome and days that I want to drive him back to where I got him, and everybody wants to have that dog that just rides in the front seat of the car with you and is mild-mannered, and then you can take him out in the field and hunt him, and he stays 15 to 20 yards in front and covers the whole field and so on and so forth. But that takes work.
Right.
Everybody wants to have a great job that pays them what they feel they're worth, but it takes work. Everybody wants to have a great marriage, but marriage takes work. Right. And you want to have great kids, and so I think the hardest lesson in life is everything you do, it takes work, and so that's what I think.
Yeah, no, that's a great lesson. And how would you say, that version of you differs from, say, the 20 years ago? What would you tell, say, even your 20-year-old self? If you were to make a phone call to your 20-year-old self, what would you say?
Well, it's what I think what I tell the kids today, and that is, don't let society define you. You script your own life. You script your own path, and you figure out the direction you want to go, and you write your own script. So many times I think people can get caught into just going along for the sake of going along, and all of a sudden they look back, and not that there's ever a right time or a wrong time to want to change, but I think 20 years ago, I look back with my kids and I tell my kids, pursue this. You got a passion for it, go for it. Mm-hmm. You want to have some money saved up to buy a house, you got to save it up. You can't do it yourself. Don't let society script that for you. You script it. And we see about the Stephen Covey books of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where he says begin with the end in mind, and that sounds kind of morbid, but you don't have to maybe begin at your funeral, although he does in the book.
Oh, does he?
You don't have to begin with the funeral. You can begin with, hey, this is where I want to be in 20 years.
Right.
And then talk to your mentors about, how do I get there? I want to achieve this level of professional success. How do I get there?
I love that. So that's an interesting point of putting an actual timestamp on when you want that by, saying, you know, and it's obvious, like, when you have to put a date on when you want things, like you hear that in goal setting a lot, but asking a mentor, say, well, by the time I'm 25 or by the time I'm 40, I want to be at this level. How did you do that? Did you do it, for one? What would you have done differently if you didn't?
Yeah.
Those are really good things. So while you're talking about like differences and, you know, now versus when you were 20, what do you do now that's different?
When I was 20, it was a long time ago.
Okay.
There was buggies, horse buggies.
Oh, come on, dude. You're not that old. Come on. So what do you do differently now from a morning routine standpoint? And what do you think makes you successful from that?
Well, fortunately, I don't have to keep the same schedule that I did. When I was younger, I would get up anywhere from 4 to 4:30 or 5 every single morning.
Yeah.
And I didn't require as much sleep. Now I require a little more sleep. I would get up back then, read the paper, look at my schedule. What do I got for the day? I'd get some exercise in the morning, and then I'd be out the door. Now I don't exercise as much in the morning. I do exercise every day, but I don't do it in the morning anymore. I read the paper, take care of the dog, kind of get ready for the day. But I think, you know, sleep is something that was important. I just have to have more sleep than I used to as a kid.
Yeah.
And as a youngster at 20, 25, whatever it was. I do my daily readings every day.
What do you read?
I read for my emotional fitness. I read I've got my own books that I read, but then I also listen to a little podcast of Brian Johnson on Optimize.
Right.
I think I told you about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do some spiritual readings. I read an Old Testament reading and a New Testament reading, write about it. And then I read a thing called Daily Bread and write about it as well. So though I do those every day.
So you're writing like a paragraph out after the reading, kind of just to help with retention?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I've just recently started writing about what I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
And so I write those things down.
It's a huge unlock.
And look back over the year and see what am I grateful for? Oh, I remember that, you know.
Yeah.
That was a tough time. I'm really grateful for that, you know.
Yeah.
So I have a log. I think I showed it to you, my binder that I keep everything in.
Yeah. That writing down your gratitudes in the morning.
Yeah.
Or just asking yourself, you know, Tony Robbins, if you guys Google this, Tony Robbins has like 7 questions to ask yourself before you start your day.
Yeah.
And what am I grateful for? What am I happy about today? You know, what am I looking forward to? Who am I glad that, you know, who am I really grateful to have in my life today? And there's like 7 really great questions you can ask yourself. And that just immediately flips the switch for you. Yeah. I heard somebody talking on a podcast actually 2 days ago. They were saying, you know, sometimes I'll open up my phone and I'll flip straight to Instagram. And he's like, it's either something political that's just going to like send me down a rabbit hole for that day, or it's somebody on vacation. And then you're starting out your day with envy instead of starting out your day with gratitude for even being alive, being healthy. Right.
Right.
There's so many other, and that's a big thing that Tony Robbins talks about too, is starting your day with the right state.
Yeah.
And being in a state of gratitude is insanely powerful. And you feel, I don't know if you've ever done that, but like the difference between when you start off with a day of gratitude versus not.
Yeah.
It's not even close.
Yeah.
Like your days are polar opposite.
Well, Brian Johnson in his podcast just a couple of days ago said this exact same thing. And he said the data shows that happy people live longer. And I think it was 97% of the people that were surveyed were lived to be 85, whereas if they weren't happy, then only about 50% lived to be 85.
Yeah.
So you have a huge gap of data that shows the benefits of happiness. you know, with Facebook and social media and all those different things. I mean, I do have a Facebook account. I do have a Twitter account. I don't know how to do
Instagram?
net or Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram. Yeah.
But I think it's important to keep that in context. You know, there's some real benefits to social media and there's some detriments. And I think Brian Johnson again defines Facebook and Twitter as kind of a highlight reel. You know, you don't see anybody on there saying, "Wow, today sucked."
Yeah, right.
You know, this is what happened.
Yeah.
And here's Eeyore with the little black rain cloud above his head. You know, no, it's a highlight reel.
It's a highlight reel.
And the reality is, you know, again, the person that's ego driven is going to try to push them down. The person that looks at it objectively is like, "Yeah, good for them. I'm glad that they're doing a good job. They're having fun. They're on a great vacation. They've earned it."
Exactly.
And
that's
so,
big. But you're not immediately putting yourself in a place of envy and like this dark place when you're looking at it.
No.
It's like good for them.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the way I look at it as well. Also, I've been reading a book called Deep Work. I don't know if you ever heard that, but it's by Cal Newport. Yeah, I think you'd really, really like it. But basically what it talks about is the people that have been the most successful with their creative works in history have found ways to isolate themselves to create those works. It talks about Carl Jung. Talks about the guy that wrote Give and Take, the book Give and Take, and he was one of the top students at Wharton, and he was notorious for not answering emails. He was notorious for just like locking himself in a closet and writing. And there is something to this because I myself have found like there's a lot of like hype around having an open work environment in 2020, especially for tech companies and social media companies. There's a lot of hype around having an open workspace where everybody can, whoever can just walk up to your desk and, hey, I have a question.
Yeah.
I think that is the most unproductive thing, and I'm going to go far in the opposite direction of that. And as soon as we can continue to build out our office, I'm going to try and go against that because what I found about myself anyways, that deep work that I do from say 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. in the morning, it's the most productive I'm going to be the entire day.
Yeah.
I'm going to put out fires. I'm going to answer questions. I'm going to address issues the rest of the day. And like, you have to do that. But as far as getting deep, meaningful work done that requires laser focus, it's tough to do that at 2:00 in the afternoon when you're surrounded by a bunch of people on desks.
Well, the crazy thing about that too, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
The crazy thing too is you look at the Steve Jobs of the world, and he would go on 30-day meditations. Where 30 days he's in the mountains, not seeing anybody, disconnected from civilization to do his deepest thinking.
Right. I never even knew about that, but yeah, that's a great example.
So you got to take time to do those things and plan and just and I'm not a good one to talk about with that because I don't do that enough. I need to be better at that. But planning and
strategically taking that time off.
Yeah.
And knowing that it's not just indulgence. It's not just, oh, well, I wanted a vacation. It's like, no. I'm taking mental time to go process all the things that are going on in my head. Yeah. And just, I think that's really valuable. I'm excited to figure out what that's like because I haven't done it since I started working either. But I think that's something I'm going to be building in my schedule a lot more. It's just...
Yeah, blocking it off and being intentional about keeping those times free for just planning. Yeah, or free for family, or free for from 12 to 1. That's your exercise time, or that's your meditation time, or that's your prayer time, or that's whatever the case is. It's important to be intentional and use your calendar and be somewhat militant about the fact that that's forbidden.
That is a great point. So with that, with waking up in the morning and reading or working for like that 4-hour block or whatever in the morning, I've been starting off like Sunday nights, and this is a great tip for anybody that wants to try and get more productive throughout the week. But starting off on Sunday nights and just writing down everything that you have to do in the next week, and then looking at your calendar and saying, when am I going to do those things? Right. And scheduling out every single task. And it's, you know, it takes some time to do, but when you hit the go button on your week, Monday morning, you know, 6 a.m., you know exactly what's going on the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And that's the time when you write everything out, just like you did with this paper here, write every single thing out that you would ever want to get out of your mind. And then when those little things come up, you can kind of pick and choose like, hey, I have an hour block here, but it's really it because I've got a lot of other stuff I have to do this week.
Well, and I think the day, at least in my day, probably your day as well, is that things are gonna come at you and throw curves at you, right. And so you can address those things and either take them and handle them, or take them and say, I'm gonna deal with you after work, but stick to what you thought you were going to do. And you've got your list. I make a list. I carry around my list of cards and things that I've got to get done today, right. As well as a card of everybody in my office that I've got projects out to. I've got cards right. of every single one of them to say, okay, where are you at on this project? And
so you actually write down note cards, and they're individual.
I know I'm old school.
No, it's funny. The more new school I get with my calendar and that sort of stuff, I still process by writing things. So even if I never look at that card again, it's still really important for me to write it. I don't know if you're the same way, but
data shows if you write it rather than type it, greater recall.
I believe it. Yeah, I believe it because it takes time. You got to sit there and go through it, right? But I have some more questions. Since you are in so many different boards, you serve. I mean, you're the ideal, like you're the epitome of like a servant leader. You are on several different boards, helping organizations get better. The University of Nebraska Board of Regents, Union Bank, just to name a few. So talk about what it is you do on those boards, and would you encourage somebody to get into that to where they're on several boards, and why?
Well, it didn't start off with those boards. It started off with community boards, mm-hmm. and I think the how I used the community boards was for what am I passionate about. And I served on several boards that Children's Museum and Big Brothers Big Sisters and Cedars Foundation Board, and those were important to me because kids, that's the future of our community. It's the future of our state, our nation, our world. And I felt like I had a good upbringing. I felt like I could help with those kids and help put programs in place that could help them. And so I think the first piece of advice there is find what you're passionate about, and then jump on a board. There's in your mentors and your civic community leaders, call me, and I'll be happy to sit down and talk with you about boards that you could get started on. And then and I believe in when I get on a board, I don't sit back and be a backbencher and never go to the board meetings. I go to the board meetings and I'm involved in the board because I'm going to research it and figure out what I'm passionate about. And once I figure out that I'm passionate about ABC board, I'm going to jump on ABC board and I'm going to get involved. And that usually translates into a position of your serving as the president of the board or something like that.
Captain of the football team.
Or captain of the football team.
Right.
And then I went from there to running for a political office, mm-hmm. And getting elected to the Board of Regents, and that's been a great experience because it's, again, my passion is young people, and if I can help a young person figure out that maybe they don't know all what they're going to do 30 years from now, but they're going to get involved in something.
Right.
And so that's been a lot of fun because if I can work with those kids and show them opportunities here in Nebraska and then get them to stick around in this state and grow Nebraska's economy, a state that I love, and I love what it stands for. It stands for ethics and integrity and hard work. And I think about the ag sectors and how those people, they work hard and they do the honest days living. That's what's important to me. And so if I can do that and help keep those kids here, that's the goal.
Yeah.
And that's why I ran for the board.
Interesting.
And then Union Bank is, again, I just love what they stand for. They stand for taking care of their employees, kind of back to what we talked about. Angie Muehleisen sets a great example, and she takes great care of her employees, and they in turn work hard for the bank. The bank does the right things, and that was down from their dad, Jay Dunlop. Mike and Angie have been just tremendous corporate citizens. I would hate to think what our society, what our community would look like without the impact of Union Bank and Nelnet. All the things. I mean, take a visual look around our community and see what corporate event in our community happens, what community event happens where you don't see Nelnet and or Union Bank
Very rare.
as sponsors.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Very rare.
And so we're so lucky to have them in this community. And so I was honored that they asked me. In fact, funny story, I ran into Angie at an event before I was on the board, and she came up to me and she said, "Hey, how does somebody get on your schedule?" And I said, "Well, you can call my assistant, or I'm here. I got my phone. Let's just set it up right now." And she said, "No, my phone's out in the car." And I said, "What do you want to talk about?" And she said, "I'll call your assistant. We'll get a meeting set next, whenever we can get it set." Well, as fate would have it, we couldn't combine calendars. We couldn't get our calendars to match up for 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so now my brain is kind of wandering. What does she want?
Yeah.
Well, my oldest son worked as a teller there and was in private banking there, and so I immediately went to, what did he do wrong? And she's going to delicately tell me that she's got to let my son go.
Right. Yeah.
That's what's going through my head. And then the fact that we can't meet for 2 weeks, I'm about ready to, strangle him, saying, "What did you do wrong?"
Yeah. He's just like, "I don't know what you're talking about."
Yeah, exactly.
He knows nothing.
So she shows up at the meeting, and she says, I said, we small talked for about 1 second.
Yeah.
And I said, "My brain's gone a lot of places. What did you want to talk about?" She says, "Well, we want to invite you to join our board." I said, "That wasn't one of the things."
Out of all the things, that is the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I'm really honored and very much appreciate, again, having the opportunity to surround myself with the board of Union Bank and the opportunities to learn from them, just like with the Board of Regents, the opportunity to learn from people like Jim Pillen, who's also on the board from Columbus and is a longtime friend of mine, Howard Hawks from Omaha, who started Tenaska that also has Hawks Hall and Hawks Field and Hawks Championship Center, to a Bob Ferris that almost won the governor's race against Charlie Thone. And had he won, who knows what would have happened,
Oh, yeah.
years ago. So, I mean, these are some great quality people that I've been able to learn from and glean information from, and so it's been a good situation.
Yeah, and I think the big takeaway from anyone that if they want to, get more involved in boards is that when you get to the board, you can't be what did you call it, a backbench member?
Backbencher.
You can't be a backbencher, somebody that just goes there to say, "I'm on that board." You need to go there and actively look to find a leadership position within, because people, you're not going to get to the Board of Regents or to the Union Bank's board without taking a lot of those steps that you took in the earlier positions to be a leader within those positions.
But I think the important thing too is, and I agree with what you say, I think the important thing is I didn't join Big Brothers Big Sisters board because I wanted to get onto the Board of Regents. I joined Big Brothers Big Sisters board because I was passionate about kids. And as it turns out, Big Brothers Big Sisters was a YPAL. It came from the YPAL program, which is what, a mentorship that you did in college. And it just dawned on me too. I was a YPAL when I was in college for a younger kid. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, it was those types of things I think are things that were you're again, you follow your passion, and if you're sincere about what that passion is, good things are gonna come.
Yeah.
But you got to follow that passion.
Right. Yeah. That's probably one of the one places where it's not, don't exactly start with the end in mind. Just, if the end in mind, that local time is big brothers, big sisters, you're just helping out those kids. You're looking for ways to help those kids. And the future is going to take care of itself. You have your intent aligned. You're constantly looking for better ways to make your community better. The right people are going to find you. Yeah. And I think that's the bottom line of this.
That's exactly right.
And I'm sure that's exactly what happened to you, is the right people, Angie is a great example, found you and reached out to you. And that's why we have a lot of mutual friends, and everyone I talk to is just like, I have so much respect for that guy. And it's the same reason. You're starting off with a great intent and just trying to help people. And that's exactly the type of people that we want to have on this show, is to show that, to get what you want in life, it's not that difficult. You really just have to help a bunch of other people get what they want. The famous Zig Ziglar quote. Yeah. And I think you really exemplify that and really show that in our community, just like Tony, just like Boyd. That's been really cool to watch, and like go talk to them about you, and then vice versa, to get to see what all of you guys are like in your individual circles. So, thank you for coming on today. Thank you for sharing with us a little bit about what it's like to build, a team of mentors around yourself. I think the audience will get a ton of value out of that, and just everything that you've done. So thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for letting me at least share a little bit about what goes on in my life.
Yeah.
And again, the underdog is the key. And I think one of my favorite heroes is Abraham Lincoln, who, when he was engaged, 150 years ago, he was engaged to be married. His fiance died. He went into depression. He got out of his depressive state and decided to start a business. He started a business. It failed. Then he figured, I want to go to law school. Why, I don't know. But he decided he was going to go to law school. Didn't get admitted. Tried to start another business. It failed. Well, when all goes wrong, what do? Get into politics. He ran for office. He ran for office. Went 0-8.
0-8
in his elections. Finally, I believe it was 1861, was elected to the 16th president of the United States. And he's a prime example of a guy who, he didn't quit, he didn't blame, he didn't make up excuses. He took those speed bumps in life and made himself better.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about Abraham Lincoln.
That's great. I didn't even know that information. That's a nice little bit to kind of put at the end of the podcast too, for people that don't know. You got to find ways to consistently turn those little speed bumps into ramps and take you to your next level.
I love it. I love that. I love that analogy.
Yeah,
that's
really what I was
good.
thinking the whole time. Like, man, he was going through a lot. I think it was bounced around.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for another episode of Spark to Fire. Thank you so much for your time and attention, guys, and thank you for listening to this show. Please leave us a written review on iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. That's how we move up in the algorithms and we reach more people. And I ask that you tell one friend about the podcast, just one person. Tell them about, this episode with Tim, or another episode in the podcast channel that you really liked, one thing that brought you value. You can find us on social media at Spark to Fire Podcast. And as usual, keep striking.